lovers of liberty in the house, I see. Thank you guys for coming out today. I know it's a beautiful day. I just want to check with you, out of those of you here, how many of you have ever emailed or called or testified at the legislature over any issue? Give yourselves a round. Thank you so much. You heard earlier, I think it was actually Dave who mentioned this, that under this building, obviously this is about the people's business. And without the people, I will tell you that this is very high risk for getting handed over to special interest for what is here. We have seen this session, especially for those of you who have worked on transparency issues and education and on other issues, that law has been made and changed and passed because of input from you. But I will say, out of 600 to 800 bills of what we see up here every year, we actually get citizen input on probably less than 10 bills out of, say, 600. So you can imagine when the question of what rights, what liberties are at stake, what happens when we actually don't participate in the system. And it's one of two things. Either we hear from no one, and then you're at the mercy of our judgment, for better or for worse, or I can guarantee you the lobby corps of 1,100 registered paid lobbyists at this building will be there. I guarantee you they will be there. They are paid to be there. So I want to thank you for taking the time to participate in that and tell you a little bit about a bill. The reason I feel passionate about liberty in here, I know everybody has another story, but for my family, actually, and our roots back in Ireland, before we actually had our revolution here, we had our land seized without any due process whatsoever. And when people resisted and fought for their liberty, they did have their firearms taken. And when people resisted, they were actually executed or thrown in jail without charges, trial, again, without due process. So we personally lost everything we had back in the 1600s and were given essentially no choice to swear loyalty to a king, convert religions, die, or leave the country. Our family left the country actually in the 1600s to come here. So as you can imagine, by the time we were fighting in the American Revolution that was here, I'm proud to have a relative of mine who not only fought but was one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. And his grandson would go on to be a signer for the United States Constitution for the state of Maryland. So for me, our constitutional rights and liberties are not just an abstraction. They're not just a talking point. All of us can go back to some point where we can see, either in this country or elsewhere, very crude and painful examples of what happens if we are not vigilant about doing this. I will just say that I think it's pretty clear to all of us that these rights do not enforce themselves. If we get comfortable, if we get complicit, if we get too relaxed, if we take these for granted, there's one thing I can guarantee you, and that is that they will, in fact, erode. So one issue to bring up today. Why do we feel so passionate, really, about the issue of transparency? Knowledge is power. Let me start there. Whether it's consumers having knowledge so that they have the power to actually make the free market work, whether it's citizens having knowledge and information and transparency so they can hold the government accountable, you cannot know what we are doing and you cannot hold us accountable unless you know every activity we do, every decision we make, and every dollar we spend. So for those of you who've already participated, I want to thank you, because I can't think of a weirder situation than to be talking to a rally about special districts. But here's why I care about the issue, and here's how I got in on this. As some of you may know, government and governments are no longer exactly the state and federal governments that we learned about in our civics classes. Special districts are something that many people have never heard of and don't really know where these levels go. These are new micro-governments that are growing prolifically. We have nearly 2,000 in the state of Colorado. I represent Aurora. We have about 119 special districts in Aurora. Here's the issue. Special districts, as came out by an audit, are sitting on a blank check of $255 billion of authorized but unissued debt. And most homeowners don't know what special districts they live in, how much debt may be hanging over their head. It's a profound problem, really, when you look at this. So not only is there 2,000 with a lot of money that's out there, but statistics show we've got less than 3% voter turnout because people don't know when and where these elections are. And beyond that, almost 80% of special district elections are actually canceled in their entirety. So to put this into perspective, like who cares about $255 billion of what's out there? Many of these are formed before homeowners or taxpayers ever move in on the property. It's pre-authorized, and they can call the full amount due with no additional notice. And people can get liened on their property, tax liens. They can be tax foreclosed and lose their properties over debt they don't know that is tax debt that is hanging over their head right now. So it is core to protecting our current state of property rights right now. It is core to taxpayer notice and accountability, so taxpayers have a right to know when and where they can vote and how this affects them on this. Our state budget, just to put into perspective, is about $18 billion. There is more money missing in special districts in the metro area alone than our entire state budget. So as much as we do need to be vigilant at local and state and federal levels, let me implore you, and I could use your help. Senate Bill 87 is the Special District Accountability Act. This gives notice for the first time in this state to eligible electors when and where elections are held, radical ideas like when and where the public meetings are held, how much debt. How can someone find out what special districts they live in and what kind of taxpayer burden they may be looking at on that? It's Senate Bill 87. It has passed out of appropriations. It is headed up for the Senate floor probably this Friday. So there's a lot of money at stake. I think there's a lot of rights at stake, and even though special districts isn't a concept that inherently gets people whipped up, I think the principles underneath this about transparency, about accountability, about taxpayer rights, about property rights could not be more important. So thank you for coming out here and joining. If any of you have any other questions, you can always contact, and please do stay engaged in the process. We are all better off when you do. Thank you.